When a family goes through a major life change, like a separation or the loss of a parent, the law has to step in and answer some incredibly tough questions. Who do the kids live with? How does the family's property get divided? Today, we're going to dive into two key areas of Hindu family law to see how it tries to balance the needs of the family with the rights of each individual. Let's get into it.
And this really is the big question, isn't it? When a marriage ends or a family patriarch passes away, the law has to step up with some answers. And honestly, those answers show this fascinating evolution in legal thinking. It's this constant balancing act between the rights of parents, the needs of the whole family, and the well-being of the individual. All right, so let's start with what is often the most emotional and, frankly, the toughest part of any divorce: the children. You'll see that the law's approach to custody has gone through this really profound transformation over the years. So if you were to rewind the clock, the whole conversation about custody was, well, it was totally different. It was framed almost entirely in terms of parental rights. The father, he was seen as the natural guardian, and his claim to the children was considered pretty much absolute. The law was more concerned with upholding the parent's authority, not necessarily what was actually best for the child. But wow, has that shifted. Today, the modern legal principle is crystal clear. The single most important factor, the first and paramount consideration, is the welfare of the child. It's a total flip. The question is no longer which parent has the better right. Instead, it's what outcome is in the absolute best interest of this specific child. And you know what's wild? This focus on a child's total well-being isn't some new idea. This quote is from 1893. It makes it so clear that welfare is about way more than just money or a comfortable house. It's about their moral compass, their emotional security, and, maybe most importantly, not disregarding those ties of affection. That's the stuff that's truly crucial for a kid. So, how on earth does a court make such a difficult decision? Well, it weighs several factors, as you can see here. But listen, this is not just some simple checklist. That top one, welfare of the child, that's the lens through which everything else is viewed. The parent's wishes, the child's own preferences, even their age. If any of that conflicts with the child's long-term well-being, the court is always going to prioritize what's best for the child. Now, the law does have some, let's call them, rules of thumb. For really young kids, specifically under the age of 5, there's a legal presumption that custody should ordinarily be with the mother. The courts basically recognize that for a child's healthy psychological development at that tender age, a mother's care is often indispensable. As one judge famously put it, the mother's lap is God's own cradle. Okay, this is a really important legal distinction that helps courts keep both parents involved in a meaningful way. A court can issue what's called a split order, so it can give the wider custody rights, the big decisions about education, religion, to one parent, or even to both of them jointly. But then it can give care and control, the day-to-day physical upbringing, to the other parent. It's a brilliant legal tool that makes sure both parents still have a real say in their child's life. And even when one parent has that day-to-day care, the other parent almost always gets access. But here's the absolute key. Modern courts see access not as the parent's right to see their kid, but as the child's right to know and have a relationship with both of their parents. It's all about making sure that child doesn't lose out on the love and influence of the other parent, which is just so vital for their development. Now, this whole idea of focusing on the individual's place within the family, it actually shows up in a totally different legal arena: property inheritance. So let's switch gears and take a look at the Dayabhaga school of Hindu law, because it has a really unique way of handling how property gets passed down. In Hindu law, you've basically got two major schools of thought on this. Over on the left, you have the Matakshara school. There, a son gets a right to ancestral property the second he's born. You can think of it like a big shared family pot. His share isn't really defined, and it can actually get smaller if more sons are born. But on the right, under the Dayabhaga school, totally different. A son has no right by birth. He only inherits when his father dies, and at that exact moment, he gets a clearly defined, fixed piece of the pie. This timeline here makes it super clear. See, in Event 1, while the father is alive, that property is 100% his. The sons have zero legal claim. But the moment he passes away, boom, we hit Events 2 and 3. The sons who inherit form what's called a co-parcenary, basically a joint heirship family, and each one of them instantly gets a defined fixed share. Maybe it's a third, maybe it's a fourth, but whatever it is, that share is theirs, and it's not going to change. And believe me, this system changes
Everything. Because an heir's share is defined and fixed, they have total control over it. They can sell it, they can gift it, they can leave it in a will to whoever they want. And here's a really important, kind of progressive feature of this system. It allows females, like a widow or a daughter, to also inherit a share and become full members of this property-owning group. But here's where it gets really interesting. A little legal twist. Even though you might own a defined 1/3 share of the family property, you can't just go and put a fence around what you think is your third. Until there's a formal partition, everyone in the family has the right to use and enjoy the entire property. It's like you might own a third of the company, but you can't just walk out with a third of the office furniture. Your ownership is defined, but the asset itself is treated as a single, undivided whole. So, what's the connection? We've talked about child custody and property inheritance. What links these two seemingly different parts of the law? Well, it all comes back to the law's constant effort to strike that perfect balance between the rights of the individual and the structure of the family. This table really brings it all together. Just look at the child custody row. You can see the law zooms in on the vulnerable individual by putting the child's welfare above what the parents might want. Then look at the Diabaga property row. The focus there is on the individual's defined right, that specific controllable share that an heir gets over the collective family interest. In both situations, the law has moved towards defining and protecting the individual's place within the family. So here's the big takeaway. Whether we're talking about safeguarding a child's future or defining an heir's inheritance, that underlying legal principle is a really delicate balancing act. It's all about making sure that inside the bigger picture of the family, the well-being and the rights of each individual person are clearly understood and fiercely protected. And that kind of leaves us with one final thought to chew on. We've seen how much the law has already changed to protect the individual. But as our very definition of what a family even is continues to evolve, the challenge is still there. How are these legal ideas going to adapt to make sure that everyone within that family structure is secure? That's all for this one. Thanks for digging into this with us.